In the heart of downtown, where the streets buzzed with energy, there stood a high-end luxury store named Gilded Treasures. It sparkled with elegant displays and offered everything from designer clothes to dazzling jewelry. This store was a favorite among the city's elite, who flocked there to shop, gossip, and show off their wealth. On a sunny Saturday morning, Eli and Emma, 12-year-old identical twins, found themselves standing outside the grand entrance of Gilded Treasures. The twins were full of life, laughter, and dreams of becoming professional athletes one day. They wore matching sports jerseys and had bright smiles, excited about their shopping trip. Their mother, Sofia, had promised them new sports gear to prepare for the upcoming basketball season. "Are you ready for this, Eli?" Emma said, bouncing on her feet. "Ready as I'll ever be. I can't wait to see what they have inside," Eli replied, his eyes gleaming with excitement. As they pushed open the large glass door, a cool breeze greeted them. The twins stepped inside, and their jaws dropped at the sight. The store was breathtaking. Shimmering chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the polished marble floors. "Wow, look at those shoes!" Emma pointed to a pair of stunning sneakers on display. "Let's check it out," Eli said, his heart racing as they moved further into the store. Little did they know, their excitement was about to turn into a nightmare. As the twins wandered the aisles, they couldn't help but admire the beautiful items around them. They laughed and joked, completely absorbed in their own world. But across the room, Mr. Jenkins, a store clerk with a frown etched on his face, watched them closely. "They're just kids," Emma said, eyeing a shiny basketball. "We should ask if we can try it out." "Let's do it," Eli said with enthusiasm. As they approached the basketball display, Mr. Jenkins' demeanor shifted. He crossed his arms and moved toward them, his eyes narrowing. "What are you two doing here?" he barked. "We're just looking at the basketballs," Eli replied innocently. Mr. Jenkins frowned. "You shouldn't be here. I need to see what you've got in your hands." "But we haven't taken anything," Emma protested. "Right," he scoffed. "I've seen kids like you steal before. You need to leave." The twins exchanged confused glances. "We're not stealing," Emma cried, her voice trembling. Suddenly, Mr. Jenkins raised his voice, drawing the attention of other customers. "I'm calling security," he yelled. Eli felt his heart race as he realized the gravity of the situation. "Please, just give us a chance to explain." But before they could say another word, Officer Daniels, the store security guard, approached. His stern face loomed over the twins, adding to their fear. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked Mr. Jenkins. "These kids are trying to steal," Mr. Jenkins claimed, pointing accusingly. Eli and Emma were taken aback. "No, we aren't. We were just looking," Eli pleaded. The tension in the store grew as other customers began to whisper and stare. "Let's take them to the back," Officer Daniels said, grabbing Eli's arm. "Wait! You can't do this!" Emma shouted, panic rising in her voice. But the officer led them away, leaving their pleas unheard. As Eli and Emma were taken to the back of the store, their hearts raced with fear. They had never been in trouble before. All they wanted was to shop for basketball gear, and now they were being treated like criminals. Meanwhile, Sofia was at home preparing for her day when she received a call from the store. "Mrs. Johnson, we need you to come down to Gilded Treasures immediately," the voice on the line said. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" she asked, her heart sinking. "It's about your children. They're in a bit of trouble." Sofia's stomach dropped. Without another word, she rushed out the door, her lawyer instincts kicking in. She had worked hard to combat racial profiling and knew her children faced unfair treatment because of their race. When she arrived at the store, she was greeted by a crowd of murmuring customers. Sofia quickly made her way to the back, where her twins were being held. "Eli, Emma," she called, rushing to embrace them. "Mom, you have to help us," Eli cried, his voice shaky. "What happened?" Sofia asked, her heart breaking at the sight of their fear. "We were just looking at basketballs, and then Mr. Jenkins said we were stealing," Emma explained, her eyes wide with tears. Sofia took a deep breath, anger bubbling within her. "Stay calm. We're going to sort this out." As she turned to confront Mr. Jenkins and Officer Daniels, her lawyer's mind raced through the possibilities. This was not just an isolated incident. It was a clear case of racial profiling. Sofia approached Mr. Jenkins, her presence commanding attention. "You cannot treat my children this way," she said firmly. "They did nothing wrong." "They were acting suspiciously," Mr. Jenkins replied defensively. Sofia's eyes narrowed. "Acting suspiciously? Just because they are young black kids? Is that your standard for suspicious?" "Mrs. Johnson, please keep your voice down," Officer Daniels said, trying to calm the situation. "No, I will not stay quiet," Sofia shot back. "This is unacceptable." As the argument escalated, a few customers began to record the scene on their phones. Sofia felt the heat rising in her cheeks. She had fought against this kind of discrimination many times before, but never had it hit so close to home. "Do you know who I am?" she asked, staring Mr. Jenkins down. "I'm a lawyer who specializes in civil rights. I will not let you get away with this." "Lawyer or not, your children were caught red-handed," Mr. Jenkins retorted, his face reddening. "They weren't caught doing anything," Sofia exclaimed. "You have no right to accuse them based on their race. This is racial profiling, plain and simple." Sofia's voice rang out, drawing the attention of more customers. She began to explain to the gathered crowd what had happened. "These are my children, and they have every right to shop without being accused of theft. This behavior must stop." As she spoke, people began to nod in agreement, some murmuring words of support. But Mr. Jenkins remained stubborn, refusing to back down. "I'm just doing my job," he insisted, crossing his arms. "Your job is to ensure a safe shopping environment, not to assume these kids are criminals based on their appearance," Sofia countered. "You're creating a hostile environment for them." Suddenly, a young woman stepped forward from the crowd. "I'm a teacher," she said. "I've seen these kids in my class and I can vouch for their character. They are good kids." Another voice chimed in. "I saw everything. They didn't steal anything." As support for Sofia grew, so did the tension in the store. It was clear that Mr. Jenkins was losing ground. Just then, the store manager, Ms. Thompson, arrived on the scene, her face pale as she assessed the situation. "What's going on here?" she asked, looking at the crowd. "Your employee has racially profiled my children," Sofia replied, her tone steady. "I demand an explanation." As the discussion continued, a man entered the store, drawing attention with his sharp suit and confident stride. Jordan Blake, a well-known social media influencer and activist, had come to shop. He was widely respected and followed for his commitment to social justice. "What's going on here?" Jordan asked, noticing the gathered crowd. Sofia recognized him immediately and felt a flicker of hope. "These kids are being accused of stealing," she explained, gesturing to Eli and Emma. Jordan's eyes widened. "That's unbelievable. I've seen these kids at the community center. They're fantastic students." With the crowd's support swelling, Jordan pulled out his phone. "I'm going live. This needs to be seen." Sofia's heart raced as Jordan began streaming the confrontation. As he spoke, he shared the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. His voice resonated with the audience, further igniting the conversation about racial profiling. Mr. Jenkins looked increasingly uncomfortable. "This is inappropriate," he shouted. Jordan replied, "What's inappropriate is accusing innocent children based solely on their appearance." As the live stream continued, the atmosphere shifted. The community's anger grew, and support for Sofia and her twins swelled. The store's reputation hung in the balance. Sofia shook her head, her determination unwavering. "No, this is about more than just my children. It's about the way this store treats people. You can't silence this conversation just because you want to protect your image. We need to talk about racial profiling openly, and this is the perfect opportunity." Ms. Thompson sighed, looking increasingly cornered. "All right, let's at least step aside so we can talk without this crowd. We don't want to make things worse, do we?" As they moved to a quieter area of the store, the crowd followed, determined not to miss a moment of what would happen next. Sofia felt emboldened by their support. She was no longer just fighting for her twins, but for every child who had been unfairly judged because of their race. Once they reached the back of the store, away from the glaring eyes of the public, but still in earshot of the crowd, Ms. Thompson gestured for Sophia and the twins to sit at a small conference table. The twins were still shaken, clutching each other's hands, but they took their seats, drawing strength from their mother. I understand that emotions are running high, Ms. Thompson started, trying to regain her composure. But we need to sort this out calmly. What do you want to happen here? I want a public apology, Sophia declared, an acknowledgement that racial profiling is real, and it has no place in our community or your store. You need to take this matter seriously and provide training for your employees so this never happens again. The tension in the room was palpable. Ms. Thompson shifted uncomfortably, her expression troubled. I'm not sure I can speak for the entire company without discussing this with upper management first. Then you should call them, Sophia insisted. This is urgent. My children were humiliated in front of a crowd, and they deserve justice. At that moment, Jordan, who had been observing from a distance, stepped forward. I'll help. If you commit to making changes in your store policies, I'll use my platform to support you. But if you refuse to act, I will make sure everyone knows what happened today. The atmosphere shifted again, and Ms. Thompson glanced at the crowd, who were now murmuring and recording everything. Okay, let me contact the owner, she said, realizing that the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. As Ms. Thompson stepped away to make the call, Sophia took a moment to reassure her twins. You're going to be all right, she said, squeezing their hands. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Remember, this isn't about you. It's about changing how people view others based on their skin color. Eli looked up at her, his eyes shining with a mixture of fear and pride. Are we really going to fight this, Mom? He asked. Absolutely, Sophia replied, her voice firm, and it's important that we do. It's not just for you, it's for everyone who might face the same situation. A few moments later, Ms. Thompson returned, her face a mixture of anxiety and determination. The owner is on the way, she said. He wants to hear your side of the story personally. The twins exchanged hopeful glances. Does that mean he might take us seriously? Emma asked. Ms. Thompson nodded. Yes, but it's important to remain calm and respectful. This is a business, and we need to find a way to work together to improve the situation. Sophia agreed, her mind racing with the possible outcomes. They waited, tension filling the air. After a few minutes, a tall man in a sharp suit entered the room. He was Mr. Kavanaugh, the owner of Gilded Treasures, and he had an aura of authority. Thank you for waiting, he said, looking around the room at the tense faces. I've been briefed on the situation. I'm sorry to hear about your experience. Sophia took a deep breath, steeling herself. Mr. Kavanaugh, thank you for coming. My children were treated unfairly based on their appearance. We want to ensure that this doesn't happen again, not just to them, but to anyone who visits your store. I understand your concerns, Mr. Kavanaugh replied, his expression serious. Racial profiling is a significant issue, and we take it seriously. I assure you, this is not the kind of behavior we condone. Mr. Jenkins shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing nervously at Mr. Kavanaugh. But they were acting suspiciously. Enough, Mr. Kavanaugh interrupted, raising a hand. You don't get to define what is suspicious. The way you handled this situation was unacceptable. We strive to create an inclusive environment for everyone. The crowd outside the conference room murmured in approval, their eyes fixed on the unfolding drama. Sophia seized the moment. What will you do to address this? We need training programs for your staff to ensure they understand the impact of their actions. An apology wouldn't hurt either. Mr. Kavanaugh nodded slowly. I agree. I will implement mandatory diversity training for all employees, including a focus on racial sensitivity. As for an apology, I can offer a public statement recognizing the harm done today and a pledge to do better. Eli and Emma exchanged excited glances, the tension slowly easing. And, Mr. Kavanaugh continued, as a gesture of goodwill, I'd like to invite you and your children to our next community event as honored guests. It's important for us to show that we stand against discrimination in all forms. Sophia felt a wave of relief wash over her. Thank you, she said sincerely. That means a lot. We need to change the narrative around these situations, and it starts with stores like yours. Mr. Kavanaugh nodded. I'll work with my team to draft a statement and ensure that our new policies are implemented promptly. Your children deserve to shop in peace, just like anyone else. As they wrapped up the meeting, Sofia and the twins stepped outside, greeted by the supportive crowd. "You did it, Mom!" Emma exclaimed, her voice filled with joy. "We all did it," Sofia replied, beaming with pride. "We stood up for what's right." Jordan approached them, his phone still recording. "You handled that like a pro. Your passion really made a difference," he said, his admiration evident. "Thank you for your support," Sofia said. "We couldn't have done it without you." The news of the incident and the subsequent resolution spread quickly through social media, and soon it was the talk of the town. Articles were written about the importance of standing up against racial profiling, and local activists began to rally around the cause. The store's commitment to diversity training became a topic of discussion, and other businesses began to follow suit, recognizing the need for change. As for Eli and Emma, they learned a valuable lesson that day. They understood that standing up for themselves and others was essential, and they felt empowered by their mother's actions. Weeks later, Gilded Treasures held its community event. Sofia, Eli, and Emma arrived dressed in their best clothes, excited to be part of a gathering that celebrated unity and inclusion. Mr. Kavanaugh welcomed them warmly, introducing them to other influential figures in the community. As the event unfolded, Sofia took the stage to share her story. "This is not just about my children," she said, her voice strong. "It's about every child who has ever been unfairly judged. Together, we can change the way we see each other. We must create a world where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their skin color." The crowd erupted in applause, their support resounding in the room. It was a pivotal moment, one that sparked conversations about race, equity, and inclusion throughout the community. The twins watched with pride as their mother spoke passionately. They felt inspired, knowing they had played a part in changing perceptions and promoting justice. As the evening came to a close, Sofia received a message from Jordan. "Thank you for being such a strong advocate. Together we're making a difference." Eli and Emma grinned at their mother. "You really are our hero," Eli said, throwing an arm around her shoulder. Sofia smiled, feeling the weight of her responsibilities, but also the warmth of her family's love. "We're all heroes in our own way. Remember, change starts with us. Let's continue to stand up for what's right, no matter where we are." And with that promise, they stepped forward into a brighter future, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead.